this thing is freaking heavy.
Oh, 16 pounds.
It is, it is. But if in real life, Nick, how big would this yellowfin really be?
I'm going to go with 84 pounds.
No, not a chance. I'm going to go 85. I got you beat. Anyway, Yellowfin Tuna, Part 2, 2021. Channel tuna, Northwest Providence Channel. Nick and I are going to get right into it. Jeff, you want me to turn it this way? Just like that, right? Mr. AA Video, talk to me.
Yeah.
Looking nasty? That's nasty. iTunes, check it out. You could talk about tuna all day and all night. It's like swordfish for me because you're so into it.
Yeah.
In the last film, we talked about several things. Your crew, your tackle, we hit a little bit on that. Your chances of actually catching one if you go over there into the channel. Nick, I want you to talk a minute about the shark issue, okay? Because this is an issue. Obviously, we all know we have shark issues, even on this side where we're fishing. Whether the sailfish are getting eaten, tarpon are getting eaten, mutton snappers, everything's getting eaten by sharks. But the shark problem's been over there. It seems like it's getting worse. Mm-hmm. And what are we really doing to the tunas here? I mean, you're hooking 15 fish and not catching any. You hear that a lot. I went over and every single one we hooked, one after the other, we never caught. Talk about that. And I'm going to hold you to this because we're going to talk about it after. My personal thoughts on chunking, sharks, how that works, how can I be more successful. Talk about the chunking a little bit more. Can you go over there without live bait and chunk and catch these things?
Absolutely. People do it.
Okay.
I feel like the people that do it get lucky sometimes.
Okay.
There's other people that are skilled anglers and fishermen.
Mm-hmm.
And the weather window opened and they don't have the live bait and they go with chunks and they have plenty of success.
Okay.
They do lose a lot to the sharks, to where if you're only going with chunks and you get your 20 bites, you might get 6. Going there with only chunks,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you will catch yellowfin tunas. People do it all the time. I know people that went the other day and had a very successful trip. I feel like there was a little bit of luck involved with the number of fish they caught
Mm-hmm.
to get them past the sharks. I personally have never had a successful trip of catching more than one whole over 40-pound tuna on only chunks.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it quite a bit, and every time I have as many pilchards as the boat can hold, we've had a lot of success.
Mm-hmm.
But putting pilchards into the water is going to attract the tunas. Last time I checked, like I said in the last film,
Yes.
you're not finding a 10-foot bull shark on a school of pilchards.
Right.
You're finding the 10-foot bull shark
Right.
on the bloody sardines.
Okay, but let me get more specific with you. We pull into a flock of birds.
Yep.
And you've already have a 5-gallon bucket cut.
Correct.
You cut a sardine in how many pieces?
3 pieces.
All right, so you have a full bucket with sardines cut into pieces about that yay big,
Into thirds.
into thirds.
Whether the sardine's this big or this big, I'm still cutting them into thirds.
Okay, you have a wiffle ball bat
Yep.
gets cut like a scooper, and you're throwing some chunks
Correct.
and throwing live baits in the mix.
Correct.
Is there a point where is it necessary to throw chunks, which has sardine chunks, has a negative effect on sharks eating our fish?
100%.
Do you throw chunks when you're already in the fish? If you have yellowfins blowing up on live baits, am I throwing chunks?
Yes.
Why?
I feel like the chunks are the fish that are deeper
Mhm.
and not coming up to the surface. You need to keep them interested in as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the live baits are always staying kind of closer to the boat. I would say you're covering a much bigger area of water in 30 minutes with chunks drifting away than when you drift for 30 minutes and you drive away, you see 5 pilchards here, 6 pilchards here, and they're all pretty close.
Mhm.
They're using the boat as a safe haven almost, I feel like,
Mhm.
to where, yeah, you got to chunk a little bit, but don't over chunk.
Okay.
If you're going for a day trip and you have 2,000 pilchards, 50 pounds of sardines is enough, and you should probably come home with 5 pounds.
Right. So 50 pounds. It's a lot.
2 flats of sardines.
2 flats.
And but I'm talking about a full day of tuna fishing, to where we leave the dock at 4:30 in the morning,
Mhm.
and we get home at 9, 10 o'clock at night.
All right. So you're fishing the whole day.
I want to fish the morning. The afternoon is usually never that successful for getting a pile of fish on. I feel like you get a lot of onesies and twosies.
Mhm.
I think they stay really deep during the day. A lot of times you see the birds sitting on the water, they're not even flying around. And then I like the sunset bite from 5:30 until you can't really see anymore.
Yeah. Well, question about the chunks again, though. So let's just say we're in the tunas again.
Yeah.
What is? Tell me, is it 2 chunks every 30 seconds? Is it 12 chunks? Is it?
No, it's as we're approaching the birds, I'll fill my wiffle ball bat. I'll pack this 3/4 of the way full.
Mhm.
Have some weight in it now.
Mhm.
And before the boat's still on plane, we're still driving, and I like to do 2 or 3 good throws towards the flock of birds
Mhm.
to kind of, whether it's the blackfins or the skipjacks that are mixed in, just to acknowledge that, oh, now there's even more food here.
Yeah.
Let's kind of stay. You can't really throw a handful of pilchards that far.
Mm-mm.
We put them in here mixed in with the chunks, and you can get them kind of far, but you have to get something that you can get the distance to the birds.
Mhm.
The birds are never going to be right next to the boat,
Right.
to where you have to throw your chunks. That's why I leave them kind of big.
Mhm.
You can throw them a lot farther than a bunch of small slivers.
Right.
But after I notice that the birds are having the tunas pop up under them
Right.
and stuff,
Sure.
a lot less chunks, maybe 4 to 5 chunks, and as soon as I see them disappear to where I can't really see them in the water, I want another 4 to 5 in the water,
Mhm.
and I'm throwing a lot more live bait.
Mhm.
Live bait's definitely going to bring them to the surface because the live baits are staying higher in the water column, and the chunks are staying deep.
One of the things that was driving me crazy.
I know exactly what this was.
So we have a light east wind, 5 to 7 knots, and we're sitting side 2, and the boat's drifting. So we're getting pushed, and we're moving in that direction. So when you throw a chunk over, where's it going? Out away from the boat.
Correct.
Okay. Throw another chunk. It's going out away from the boat. Within seconds, the chunk is,
Disappearing.
disappearing. It's gone. Okay. When you're sitting and you're drifting and you're chunking, throwing it off the wind side of the boat is not the answer. Okay. You're not giving yourself enough time. So what do I mean? If we're on the boat, you're on the stern and I'm on the bow, and we're drifting that way because the wind is in our face and it's blowing us. I start throwing chunks over the side. 4 minutes later, I see tunas busting about 100 yards out here. Okay, and you got birds coming down picking scales from the sardines, and but they're out of range. Okay, so what's happening is a lot of times while you're chunking or throwing this, there's floating objects, and the birds come down in it. Then the tunas come up because of the residual from the sardines is floating, scales, etc. And there's a slick. Now you got the tunas in the slick, but they're too far behind you. Guys, when you're chunking for tuna, and you're drifting in that direction, and we're getting blown away from the chunks, throw the chunks in that direction. Throw them behind the boat, so that way they sink under your boat, in your baits that have leads on them. Throwing the chunks off this side where they're disappearing and your baits are never really experiencing the use of the chunks is useless. Throw the bait and the chunks on this, have the guy on the far side of the boat throwing the chunks that way. The chunks now sink. As we move this way, the chunks are underneath the boat. Now we look over at the machine. Here they come. Now the yellowfins are feeding under the boat. What people are doing is they're throwing chunks, and then the tunas are feeding over there, and then they're swimming off, and you're not. You agree with that?
I do.
Okay. That is a huge thing. Remember, you got one shot today. You may only have them close to the boat one time, and that's your only thing. Items like that, where you're throwing chunks, just the direction of how you throw a chunk is the difference between winning and losing. That's the truth of it. Throw the chunks off the far side, let the chunks be under your boat down deep, and a lot of times you don't get bit on top. Talk about, for a second, Nick, let's just say we're in an area. And we see the birds over here, and you saw, boom, you see, I saw a tuna. You say, hey, yeah, because you're a boat general. You say, hey to me, all right, RJ, pull it back, let's get set up right here. If you're sitting waiting, and you know that in this area those tunas are here and they're going to come back, what is your thought process for getting baits down? What's your thought process about chunking? Like, when you get here, are you going to, and you don't really see the tunas here, but like every time you see these guys driving around in circles, and they keep driving their boat chasing the same flock. Well, that tells me those birds have gone from there to there, to there, to there, to there, back to there, to there. What does that mean? If I set up right in the middle and I never even motored, you'd be catching fish. Follow me?
I do.
So what's your thought of, like, camping out is what I would say.
Yeah, you can get them camping out.
Okay?
If you put your time in with the chunks and you stay...
But I still have live bait. I'm going to still say I have your setup.
Oh, yeah, you have plenty of live bait, but I'm always going to have a few chunks in the water. A few. I've gone with people before, and we bring 300 pounds of sardines, and they're as many sardines in the water at a time, just like... That's too much for me.
For sure.
I want a nice trickle. I'm almost thinking of making a path to my boat with the
That's
chunks.
all. Yeah, making a path to your boat. What a great way to put it.
And I don't want to put too much in the water to where, okay, they eat the 5 or 6 chunks. I want them to keep getting closer, following those chunks to my boat. To where if we're in a really good area, and there's a few birds over here and a few birds over there, but they're not really on me, but when I set up, I've already committed a few hundred live baits. I got a nice sardine slick going. I've waited 2 hours because they're in the air. They're not leaving. They're there. If the birds are still there, the tunas are there.
Yes.
Every once in a while, you get some deep marks on your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, we did probably 3 hours, it felt like one day. It probably was 2, but felt like 3 hours.
Biggest fish we caught when I was with you was, and we only caught a single.
Yep.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was 78 pounds.
Yeah. We sat there, and how long did we sit there without getting a bite?
2 hours.
We watched the birds. We watched guys 500 yards away catch fish. Nick says, hey, man, pull them back. We're going to camp out. I said, okay, let me put we put a long bait out with no lead. We put 2 long baits with lead. We have two with leads on them. And
while you're camping out, be quiet.
Okay. That was very crude. Say that again?
While you're camping out, be quiet.
Be quiet. Don't rattle the frickin'...
You can eat your lunch and relax and talk shit with the boys, but don't turn the stereo on.
Right. Don't walk around the boat. Don't start lifting the cast net because you used it this morning and getting the scales out. Be quiet.
It's good to camp out in the afternoon. It's hot. Get your baits kind of far away from the boat. Longer you free line them out, the deeper they're going to go. And I feel like in the afternoon, the reason it's slower is because it's hot.
It's hot.
It's April and it's 83
But that was
degrees,
when we caught that.
And it was on the longest rod.
Way out. We hadn't had a bite in an hour.
I would say that bait was at least 200 to 300 yards away from the boat.
No question. For sure.
And the rod just slowly, the bow and the line set the hook, and she was on. And there were still birds off in the distance. There was no birds around us when we got that bite.
No.
But our bait was a couple hundred yards away.
Right. Interesting.
To where the birds might not be right on the yellowfins. They're on the skippies and the little baby yellowfins on the surface.
Yeah.
when you mark yellowfins, you're marking them 400 feet below the boat,
Mhm.
200 feet below the boat, and you see your screen slowly light up. And when that screen lights up, that's when you got 3 fish on.
And what was interesting, because we in the last film we talked about trolling the fish up by catching skippies, and in the Tristan Hunt film, the seminar, Yellowfin Tuna seminar, talks about putting out a couple lures, small lures, and catching the skippies, and that brings the tunas up. We've had that success as well. But at the end of the day, the thing I'm going to ask you is specific to the channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the fingers out behind Lucaya.
Mm-hmm.
There's the eastern side, or what I would call the southern side, off of Isaacs.
Correct.
And then guys who go way back in, past Ginger, way back.
Great Harbor, home
Great.
level.
Okay. So when you're deciding to go do this, Nick, is there a path or like, do you start out on this side because we're closer to Isaacs than we are to Lucaya?
Yeah.
Like, what's your thought there?
We always, I mean, you're not going to pass up good fishing ground because your buddy caught them off the farthest fingers.
Yeah.
Once that sun gets up and your radar's going, yeah, you'll catch them 5 miles into the channel, 15 miles northeast of Isaacs.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where it starts.
Right.
Deeper water.
Yep.
So yeah, we're always fishing right there, but we'll go as far east as we have to go.
Mm-hmm.
We were 160 miles away from home on the last trip.
But that's where you would start. See what you just
Yeah,
said?
yes.
For us, off of Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Boca, running over to off Isaacs.
Absolutely.
So we're looking.
We start at the mouth of the channel every trip.
Right. Now you're not going straight back to the east. You're kind of going catty corner a bit, correct? Back towards the fingers.
Yeah. The fingers are right off Lucaya.
Uh-huh.
And I would say my main goal of every trip is that's my spot that's keyed in.
What is, fingers?
The fingers.
Okay.
To where that's where I'm always kind of heading. That's like my staple direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm fishing my whole way there.
Yeah.
You might have your boat filled 20 miles before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
You might have your boat filled up 20 miles past them. I don't like to fish near other boats.
Mm-hmm.
One boat off in the distance is fine, but last trip we went on, I was driving right past giant flocks of birds because there was 2 boats already set up on them. And
Why, you feel like the fish push down?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I talked to some people that I passed by them 3 or 4 times, and how you catching anything? Haven't fished yet. That's what I'm saying to them.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in
blow
the
all
mix,
your bait.
blow all of my bait, to where if they're already stuck in this guy's chum line, I've had it happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm over here and they're over there, and I set up on 2 little birds, and they already have 5 birds behind their boat.
Mm-hmm.
All the bait I'm offloading is going in their direction. I love you and all, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not feeding your fish.
Right, for sure.
But
No, it makes sense.
find your own flock of birds, find your own fish, and you'll have a lot more success.
Talk about the difference between a morning bite for tuna and a late afternoon bite. Which one's better, Nick?
Late afternoon.
I'm going with late afternoon as well. Why is it?
I feel like those tuna start probably feeding a couple hours before the sun's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're getting over there and being able to find the birds with the radar, they're on the last of their feeding pattern for the morning.
Mm-hmm.
To where the night pattern once the sky starts getting like dusty orange,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you really start seeing some National Geographic stuff. I
Yeah.
call it like.
I feel the same. I think the afternoon bite is better. I think
And,
you're established
You're
there, too.
missing that in the morning because it's dark out and you can't see that.
Correct.
I've heard a couple.
That's great.
I've spent a good amount of time tuna fishing, and I've heard a couple guys like that live in the Bahamas
Mm-hmm.
fishing until 9, 10 o'clock at night on one school of tunas and
Mhm.
catching them until they just want to stop
Yeah,
into the pitch black.
right.
Once you find them at 8 o'clock, you found them late, and you're still marking them,
Mm-hmm.
they'll eat all night.
Yeah. One of the things, guys, I want to tell you and encourage you to follow the rules and the laws of clearing.
It's not worth it.
you
to not clear.
guys go over, and when we talk about clearing, it's clearing customs. Going out of the Bahamas, you have to go to clear customs before you go fishing. When you make a trip like this, and that's the reason, part of the reason I asked you that question about when's the actual bite better. The tuna bite is historically better in the afternoon, we believe, in the
Late
spots.
afternoon.
Late afternoon, just before dark. What does that mean to guys going over for a couple days or whatever? Guys, do you have to get up at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning like he's talking about?
No.
Not necessarily. Get up at 8 o'clock. Go over, clear customs, come out, do some deep dropping, get some meat in the box, then do your tuna thing later in the afternoon when you actually have a better shot at catching them. So now you're not worried about looking in the distance and somebody's wanting to board you and you didn't clear customs and now you have that feeling all day. It's not
You
a
have
good
the feeling all day of, if I go too far east, I'm really getting into the heart of the channel.
Mm-hmm.
I have a better chance of getting caught.
Yeah.
So you're staying on the western side of the channel.
Yeah.
I would say Gingerbreads west,
Mm-hmm.
which you'll catch tuna in there,
Yeah.
but you're not. Okay, they might be 20 miles this way, but you have the pucker effect of
The pucker effect. That's the truth. People do it all the time. They're not clearing customs,
clear
guys.
customs, so you can feel comfortable going the extra mile.
Yep.
And
You need to clear customs. It's the law.
it's the law.
It doesn't matter what we say. It's the law. So clear customs when you go tuna fishing. You don't need to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning. Leave at 8 or 9 o'clock. Go over, clear customs, do some deep dropping, then go tuna fishing. Keep your baits. Obviously, the next morning you can do that as well. That's what we're going to tell you.
You usually have a much more enjoyable trip
For sure.
when you clear customs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's multiple reasons why. You don't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and by 2:30
You're done.
you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Go clear customs. Leave your house at 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Customs opens at, I want to say, 8. You get there right as they're opening. You can start cutting your chunks while the captain's clearing you in.
There you go.
You're well rested,
Mm-hmm.
and you have no worry in the world of getting thrown into Fox Hill. And,
Yeah, heading to Fox Hill.
Remember-
You were there a couple times. I saw you there
Yeah,
from a distance. The next cell.
in the cafeteria.
Anyway, you gotta love tuna fishing. This is it. This is what we're looking for. This is what the kind of tunas that I catch. Nick's are much smaller. His are in the 30-pound range. But this is the kind of stuff that I catch when I go over, Nick, right?
Yeah.
He usually loses these. I catch these.
I-
So it's complete opposite. What do you think? Now I'm going to tell you the real weight of this fish.
You don't know the real weight of this fish.
I do.
Did you catch it?
I did. Guess how big this was. I'm going to give you one guess. If you go over, it's like the price is right. See, if you go over, Nick, you lose. If you stay under, you're all right. Go ahead.
81 pounds.
Man, I got to tell you, you lost, Nick. This is a 73-pound yellowfin tuna. Till next time, Nick's out.